So if you want to learn how to study track, you come to the right place, as today I will show you not only how to study track, but also I will show you basically the tools in order to get started. So straight about what you need is the free cam, and in order to get the free cam it's actually quite simple. All you want to do is basically not go over here, but instead what I recommend to do is basically just first of all load up your content manager, not your camera settings, but your content manager. So from here you want to go to settings, content manager, and then you want to open it. You don't want to change it, you want to open it. And then from here you want to go to system, CFG, and then Assetto Corsa.ini. Then from .ini you want to change two settings, which would allow you to get the free cam. Basically, the first setting, of course, is to enable development apps to 1. This allows you to pretty much use any app inside of Assetto Corsa, and it basically gives you additional permissions. And the second one is to do with the camera, which will be down here around allow free camera 1. This in fact allows you to enable free cam. Then once you're done, just click on Control S and then save it, and then you're pretty much done. But just to make sure that it in fact works, you want to make sure that you go to the stage patch for your cameras and enable it, because if you don't have it enabled, that means by right it won't work. And actually it will work still, but this will in fact makes it a lot more better and a lot more smoother, so that's why I recommend it. So that's basically that, and in order to control it is basically arrow keys. So if using WASD, like, it won't work, but it's time to in fact study the actual track. So I see right that zooming outwards with the scroll wheel makes so that it goes faster for some reason, so you could do that, and it's actually quite cool just to see the whole track as a whole. So if I can start off from the finishing line of the short pinwheel, so this is the key way in order to start learning track, is basically figure out all these boards, 150, basically these are like boards, like kind of like breaking point boards, and these points actually tell you how far you are from the actual corner. This is what it says around like 50 meters, 100 meters, and then basically you're supposed to be breaking around like after 50 or kind of like before it. It really depends on each car, and you definitely need to test that out depending on each breaking point of a car. But what I know is for some cars, especially for short pinwheel, is that around the 50 board is kind of like where like you brake really heavily, but if you want to brake extra smoothly, you want to brake between like 150. So around here is the key point in order to basically start braking nice and smoothly so you can go in. Then you want to make sure that you go into the corner, make sure to get some curb, but don't get all the curb or don't get too much curb. As pretty much right that if you go onto the outside edge, Control H just to make it a lot more clearer. If you get too much curb, as you can see over here, you may actually hit the barrier and then you actually damage your car. Too little curb, it may actually be like that you may actually drive off into the gravel, cause you to lose time. What you need to do is make sure that your two wheels, your two left wheels, of course, right here, are of course on the actual curb, while your other two are of course off the curb. If basically all four wheels on the curb, or if you're right two wheels in this case, that means by that you're pretty much off and you're hitting the barrier. So yeah, basically left two wheels onto the curb, and make sure to not really use the curb as like a braking point or kind of like an acceleration point. Like you can kind of use it that, but pretty much don't try to accelerate heavily or like try to brake as much or even try to shift and such, because the curb is of course very reactive and it's quite unexpected things happen when like you drive on the curb. But after you in fact drive off the curb, you want to in fact start accelerating around the exit point. The exit point should be, especially for this point, is around here-ish, where like the green arrow is. This is optimal, but you can start accelerating whatever you want from here to here. To accelerate here, you're kind of just doing it a little bit too late. And then from here, right, you want to make sure that you basically straighten out your car, making sure right, that you're not driving on the curb, but make sure you're driving alongside the white line, because basically if you drive on the curb is very bumpy, so it will actually in fact cause you to lose time if you in fact drive on the actual curb. So you want to in fact drive on the actual road, keep driving like so, And then here's actually a point. So basically for Formula cars, and with them having like boost points out everywhere, or aka the 2026 F1 cars, I would recommend not having the DRS enabled in this whole section. Why? Because I noticed, right, especially for most, if not all, that most, or if not all the time, that had the car actually slip out and then go inside the gravel. This is mostly because well, that the car is not really good, especially with the altitude, especially when it goes down suddenly and it goes up suddenly. So for this one, I recommend just to keep up with the acceleration, get some of the curves so that you can get yourself on the outside as much as you can, because more on the outside makes sure that you open up the actual corner a little bit more. So you want to keep on the outside, and then right, and what I noticed, especially with the Audi car, is that that will downshift around here where you get to the bottom of the point. Why? Because this actually makes sure that the car wouldn't just slide off during 5th gear, and in fact, right, 4th gear makes, for some reason, it keeps the car secure on the actual track itself. So if you do it there, right, it basically is a lot more smoother and pretty much allows you to pretty much continue with the acceleration. And then with, of course, the exit, you want to aim for the actual outside, which is, of course, here. But this is only for temporary, as that for, especially for here, you want to, in fact, right, adjust the car smoothly so that you go from the left side to the right side with little turning as possible. You make sure that the turning is in fact quite smooth. If it's quite rough where you go from the left and then immediately to the right, you may actually lose a lot of speed and it's not really as optimal. So you want to in fact like go from the outside here. Make sure if you want to get some curb, but I wouldn't really recommend it since there's gravel and you can easily drive off. So I recommend going alongside the white line for this and basically stop accelerating around here and people start to brake a little. If you want, you could just downshift so that you can in fact help you out even more, because downshifting plus a little bit of braking helps you in fact like take this corner nice and easily. And make sure to take some curb as well, as that this will open up the exit a lot more. If you like go on the white line or around the middle-ish, especially for apexes or outside, you're probably going to drive off, or you're probably going to be extra slow throughout it because you try not to drive off. Then you'll pretty much end up from the left side to immediately on the right side, which where you want to in fact like take some curb, but this is mostly just for stability purposes and you don't want to really just take up all the curb. Just use the curb as a necessary point in order to basically start adjusting your car, but basically from here you want to continue straight, just continue accelerating like so. Just get adjusted. Like I recommend going on the left side for this, as that this will open up the actual turn over there a lot more. So you just want to keep on accelerating, and then around like here-ish is where like you want to generally brake and just do a smooth brake, because smooth braking is in fact better than rough braking, as that rough braking is kind of where like you're stressing out and it can actually lead you to lose control of the car. So smooth braking will be a lot more better, as that it keeps you nice and calm and it keeps the car nice and calm, making so that of course the output is going to be expected. You want to drive a car like as if you want the output to be expected. You don't want anything to be unexpected, as that pretty much could in fact cause unintended consequences. But then you want to brake if you want to get downshift, because I got downshift around here, especially for the Audi that I have. And then just drive in, and then from here I recommend just to start accelerating. Why? Because this whole point is kind of like a turn, but at the same time it's also kind of like a straight if you know what you're doing. But this is the common mistake I always make, that I always take up too much curb and may actually go on the grass. This is in fact a fatal mistake, especially for this track, as that it will in fact lead you in order to basically spin out and pretty much go into the outside really rough, and it will cause you to lose speed massively. So what you want to do is use the curb as kind of like an emergency, but you can use the curb if you want to get that corner extra tight. Basically with the corners you want to take them as tight as you can so that you can open up the actual exit a lot more. But if you want to do that beforehand, you have to of course end up on the opposite side of the actual corner. So this corner's on the left, so you have to end up on the right before the turning. So if that makes sense. So then from here, right, you can just accelerate full. This is a full-on acceleration. Like you can accelerate fully throughout. Like even though they are kind of like altitude and like a lot of altitude, like it should be fine. And then from here, right, is of course a rough ass turn in. So especially for this one, I recommend is to basically start braking smoothly beforehand, especially right around here. But what I also recommend, right, is that during this whole braking point, is that you want to shift down heavily towards second. Like, try to shift down as quickly as you can to second without, of course, breaking the gearbox or trying to break it, any parts of the car. That's why smooth braking is in fact quite important here, as that smooth braking plus downshifting the aggressively would in fact allow you to get to second gear quite quickly. Then from here, but you want to take the corner immediately right in. So you want to brake and then turn it immediately right in, and then just as soon as you reach here, right, go fully slowly put on acceleration, and then soon from here, right, you should be on full acceleration, turning slightly, where you keep on going straight ahead, while you of course see this roller coaster, just to show you how chaotic this map is. And of course, the pit lane, also this will be quite useful, especially for races, as you won't know where your pit lane is, because not knowing where your pit lane is of course detrimental, as that when it comes to the race, you may actually be kind of confused, and this could in fact really fuck up your race if you don't know where it is. So I recommend right beforehand, go to Freecam, figure out where the pit road is, and just, you know, get some practice here, try to drive it nice and smoothly, and figure out when is the perfect point in order to enable your pit limiter. Enable it too early, you can lose a lot of time. Enable it too late, and you could get a potential consequence for basically driving over the speed limit in the actual pits. But from here, what you want to just start accelerating massively, just full on 100 throughout this, and you always know for fact where you accelerate fully at 100%, no matter what track it is that if it's the pit lane next to the actual track, there's of course always gonna be a straight. It's not gonna really be like a turn or like all those stuff, unless if like pretend like some tracks could be exemption for it, but in most if not all universal tracks that the straight is always parallel to the actual pit lane, like so. So you just want to keep on accelerating like that, and you'll still have the acceleration up. And this is where you know it's like 200 meters, which is where like Sky Reminder, yeah, but you have to brake. Then like 100 meters, this is where you kind of like slow down a little bit, but slow down too much, especially early on, would in fact might just really make you waste a lot of time. So you want to basically brake at like 100 to 150, but the more later that you brake, the more time that you in fact gain. But if you do this incorrectly, you can in fact lose a lot of time of it. So you want to make sure that you figure out the most optimal way in order to start braking, the optimal way in order to start accelerating, especially on track, especially what type of car that you have. Is that this is currently the car I'm in fact going to drive along the track with, and I'm in fact going to show you how I would in fact start driving in a track right now. So sorry about that, this is in fact my UI that of course you saw. Everything about the UI and everything I have as a UI will be posted in the links in the description down below. So it's basically just about you want to make sure that of course you have everything paired up. You want to make sure that you know where your of course pit limiter is, your DRS if you use F1 cars or open wheel cars, and yeah, mostly you just need is a pit limiter. But let's in fact start accelerating and in fact show you where I brake. So basically what you want to do is accelerate, and around here I'll normally shift down towards gear 4, but however, because I'm starting out right now, what I also recommend is also to do a warm-up lap. Don't try to push the car as much as you want, but if you can, like me, you can push it as much as you want, but it's mostly recommended that, especially for for qualifying or basically for practice, or like generally for any sort of race, like try to prioritize that your first lap is always going to be your warm-up lap. And for races, try to make sure that the tires are warmed up as quick as they can, because basically you 100% need the grip, as that pretty much your tires, if they're not warmed up, will in fact leave for your car to basically not, well, slip and dash all over the place. So let's see if I start talking about it. So shout about right, I'll stay on the outside as much as I can, take the curb if I want, then slight turning, then you shift down to 4 immediately, and then just really go on the acceleration. Then from here you wanna basically shift down towards D while also braking ever so slightly, and then just turn in. But also try to be gentle on the actual acceleration, as that you don't accelerate too much as you can drive off. And then you want to brake slightly as you proceed to shift down towards gear 3. You can't do that. It's kind of hard to explain, but you kind of get used to it and know where to brake depending on each car as you in fact complete practice sessions, and of course when you practice along with yourself, because trust me, especially for practicing for multiple times a day, the most effective type of practice is the practice where you know where to brake, know where to accelerate smoothly, and of course know where the pits are. Basically all the fundamentals of a track, but also at the same time, right, knowing how to in fact, right, pretty much shift up, shift down well. Basically, if you're like me, who've been racing for a while now, especially for sim racing, you kind of get used to it and know what to do in terms of it, making so right that your training is in fact more effective. So for any beginners out there, of course your practice may be shit at first, but as soon as you figure out what you need to improve on, you can soon have practice that is not only really good but also really effective, as that pretty much more practice equals better results. And also, if you want to learn really a lot more about the track itself, try different vehicles, as that this is pretty much not the main vehicle in fact I'm going to use for this track. As the vehicle for this track, especially for the race that I'm competing in, it's pure MX-5s. So I can show you what I normally do if I want to race in that MX-5 race, and what I need to learn in order to basically compete in that race itself. So here it is with the vehicle I'm in fact going to compete in. And shut about right, camber in fact matters, because of course when you're going to start off with camber like in this, which is first of all right really bad, because with this camber it basically covers up everything and it's extremely useless. So basically you don't really want this, and you only want this if you don't have the UI that is on screen, especially on my screen. But if you have the UI like I do, you just simply don't need that. And yeah, all you need is just simply this, the dash cam or the hood. But I recommend the dash cam, since of course you know where the whole width of the car is, and this will in fact help you in terms of your judgment to simply not only figure out how far you are from the curb, but also its general perspective. So let's stop off with the rambling, and let's in fact focus on pretty much practicing. So a warm up. So basically you want to make sure that the tires are warm. You can tell based on the right hand corner in my corner where you can see a bunch of tires. These are all tire temps, which go from PSI, the tire pressure of the actual tires, which is set into, which may decrease over time with of course the temperature and the condition. And the temperature shows how much pressure there is in the actual tire in terms of temperature. The more heat that is in the tires, the better. But you see, you actually overheat the tires and just start to lose grip and start to lose condition of the tires extremely quickly. So for the most optimal, you want it to be like between cold and like warmish, but you don't want it red or like one of them like really hot colors, because the more hotter the actual color, the more you put stress on the actual tires, and therefore when the actual tires are, well, start to overheat and start to actually lose grip. So you want to in fact right, just hold on acceleration in here, going deep into the actual corner, but also holding acceleration on the actual pedal. And also at the same time, right, I also recommend to get yourself a wheel mod. Try to get yourself an actual F1 wheel mod, no matter if it's 3D printed or not, because these F1 wheel mods, especially for your wheel, will be in fact extremely useful. Because I noticed right that I have been losing a lot of time and not really being as good or as efficient with my basic Logitech wheel. But however, after installing a Logitech G927 wheel mod, like, and I crashed, dumbass me. After installing a Logitech G27 F1 wheel mod, it basically improved my performance a lot more. Why? Because now I have a lot more grip, a lot more control over the wheel itself. But look at my car is in fact quite damaged, as that I can show you what to do during a pit stop, as that this is in fact all useful for when you in fact compete in your first race or competing in races. So basically you want to slow down and then hit the pit limit, and then you just want to hold down the acceleration, as it will pit limit to the actual pit limit in the actual game itself. Then you want to in fact pick what you want to do. For example, I just only want to fix the body because I fucked up, and then you just wait. Well, also at the same time, ready to shift down, because of course I'm in second gear, so you want to shift down and also hold your pedal on the max so that you can get yourself a nice takeoff. So it wasn't really that good of a takeoff since I was in second, but you want to make sure you don't forget to deactivate the pit limiter, because deactivating the pit limiter would be detrimental and will in fact cost potential seconds of your time. But it doesn't really matter, as that pretty much the first lap right after your tire change or right after you go into the pits doesn't really matter anyways. So what you want to do is take some curve, but not all of them, like so. We'll also say try and make sure you turn as little as you can, because you want to optimize as much acceleration as you can, like so. And then you want to just cut in like so. It's kind of like cutting in towards the actual corners themselves, but in Soda you just want to go with it. And of course you want to make sure that you shift down smoothly. The main reason why in fact slipped down and actually crashed is mostly because I shifted down too hard. And of course some cars like the Mazda MX-5, these cars have an issue with of course shifting up and down. Actually shifting up is fine, but it's just mostly down towards shifting down, as that it pretty much could just potentially cause your car just to slip out. But you want to brake like so, like super smoothly, or also taking some curve, and also try to keep nice and tight control over the car itself. You don't want it to spin out as much, but if it is about to spin out, try to control as much as you can before you in fact spin out, because if you know how to in fact do that, then you'll pretty much know the fundamentals behind the actual car itself. So you want to go on the outside, and then you want to just take in the corner like that, just smoothly like so. And if you want, you can take it down yourself for the first couple laps, just to in fact learn the track itself. And then from here you can just go through it again right inside, and then for here is just full of flat acceleration. Just make sure that you take as much track as you can without trying to crash in. But this corner, what especially notice is that this is of course a third gear corner, and especially for as you keep on driving, you realize right now some corners are like supposed to be for higher gears. You especially notice for it, especially when you drive the car more often, and even on the track that you're practicing for. So you want to make sure that you figure that out, as that it'll be optimal for not only for qualifying, just to get as much speed into the corners, but also for top speed, for acceleration, because you want to shift up, shift down smoothly, but also make sure that you turn in also nice and smoothly, so that you get as much exit as you can. So for this one, of course, I know is of course a nice fourth, I believe, so I could just accelerate it like that, and doing it this way makes so that you give more uphead for the gear shifts, making so that you can stay in fourth and shift up to fifth, and then from here you can shift down towards third like so, because you notice that you get down to a little bit too slow. So it's determined based on feel, what I believe, in my opinion. This one is of course a third, but of course due to me not being as confident in the car, I'll shift down towards second. But as you see, when I shift down towards second, I start to get kind of like my car to feel as if they're spinning out, and especially for high acceleration, it can lead to you just pretty much knock yourself out the race. Not because someone crashed into you, mostly because that you're driving, or basically the actual the gear shifting, it's not really good, not really perfect, to the point where that the car couldn't really control itself under the pressure while also trying to gear shift down and plus the acceleration and the turning. This mostly happens towards mass manufactured vehicles like these, and of course for vehicles that are of course seen as oh shit, I literally gone on the curb a little bit too much. I was a little bit distracted, but well, those right, especially for mass manufactured vehicles, they don't really be as good on track compared to the actual specialized motorsports vehicles. More because of these vehicles are actually in fact optimized. So this one is in fact a third gear, so I can just slow down smoothly and then go into the corner and provide the acceleration. You just want to make sure that kind of like that, you will put all the smoothness into the corners. Because smoothness, consistency, braking points, and knowing when to shift up, shift down, and knowing which corner and for what gears for each corners are, is basically what you mostly in fact all you need in order to basically not only compete competitively, but also for basically tactics, strategically, and most of all that also, with also prepping up your actual your pit stop strategy, which is very important, as that these are a set of instructions provided towards your your pit crew, or your virtual pit crew in this case, to do when you're in fact going for a pit. This will in fact be quite convenient, as that all you need to focus on is to accelerate in, brake, and then just of course change your tires and then go out, and it will in fact show you pretty much right now. So basically for in fact this, you want to go to the settings, and from here you want to in fact optimize your vehicle. Look at the gears, figure out what is in fact the max speed for that gear, and of course this is in fact quite useful. And then of course figure out what type of tires you have. You can have a variety of tires depending on what type of car it is. For motorsport specialized vehicles that have multiple sets of compounds of tires, but for mass manufactured vehicles it could just be one. Fuel is in fact quite important, as how much fuel you in fact bring into the race is how much fuel you in fact mostly in fact going to use. So make sure to put as much fuel as you can, enough to basically sustain you throughout the full race, but don't put in too much, as that just can affect the weight distribution, the overweight of the car. It makes it potentially more slower as you put in more fuel. So try put in as much fuel as you can, but don't put in a little bit too much. Just put in enough that will in fact last the whole race. It should be listed over here based on estimated laps or estimated time. Just use them in order to figure out how much fuel you need. Alignment. This is in fact quite important, as that this is all to do with alignment on the actual tires themselves, as that I'm not really good at explaining like tuning your vehicle as a whole, but what I noticed about these right is that this is how your wheels are distributed or placed on the actual car itself. Could be useful if you want to in fact adjust it so that it can be a lot more better. As you need to be in here, especially for open wheel cars, just so you can in fact figure out what to mostly in fact do. Dampers is just mostly how high or how low the actual car is. Dynamic is brake power, is how powerful the brakes are. Suspension is basically suspension, how high or how low the actual car is, and the actual wheels also. With of course pit stop strategy, which I in fact want to talk about, which of course you have 3 separate saves or pit stop strategies, where in each one you can put in your own custom liters, compounds, and of course change the pressure of the actual car. So with this one you can add in fuel or not add in fuel depending on how much fuel you add, and then with the compounds you can add in a compound or not, but I recommend just to keep this on so that you can just drive it, switch your tires and go out, because that's just mostly what pit stop's all about. Just driving in, switching out your tires and then going out. But if you need more fuel, you can go for more fuel. But yeah, this is where like your times are, but of course I have Track Master, which of course takes track of my best times, figure out where I mostly gone wrong, and potentially improve, which I'm in fact going to show you. With of course this line show you throughout the whole lap, where I shifted down, where I shifted up, with of course speed, brake, and mostly everything else. And of course it's listed down here. Like for example, you could put over here where I braked around 31%. And then of course at 102 miles an hour with of course T potentially meaning traction, I believe, maybe, who knows. At like 100%, it seems if that it's supposed to be like gas, like that's what T means, because when I put it over here it's kind of like 0. So yeah, I think it's based on gas, how much gas you in fact put in. So yeah, and of course gear in here just to tell you what gear you're in. So the higher the actual point, the higher the gear is. So this one's like gear 5, and especially for the Mazda MX-5, especially for this track, I noticed right that the actual what is it? The actual gear shifting would actually in fact go up to 5. I think it could go up to 6, but especially for this track, the max is of course 5. And here is track title. I in fact don't have of course a trial, but however what I most have is the free version, which most of it is in fact you need in fact for basic driving in order to start basic driving and tracking, as it will automatically track all the times that are supported depending on the track itself. So if the track is in fact not supported, it's in fact not processed. So what I'm gonna do right is pretty much what is it, process this time. But as you see right, my best time is 1:25.472, but I started off with of course a solid 6 minutes and 44, but those would be chilling inside the actual what is it, pit, so that wouldn't really count. So yeah, you want to in fact right click on your reference lap, which is 1:25, but you in fact could just click on your old fastest time lap and in fact figure out. So basically what it shows right is the portion of the map here, like the segment, and in fact shows you here where it is. So basically it's easy for that is the turning over here. So about it, it's not really good to explain on this one because it's not really as good. However, there's in fact a lot of them, especially for the Red Bull Ring, which I in fact took my car in. So we have the last lap of course the 2:27. It should just process them, but basically this is how it works in theory. So even though it's kind of inaccurate, like just like it's good, but it's kind of like inaccurate, especially where the lines are. But imagine this on the actual track. So basically, as you see right now, I'm on the edge on the left hand side, and then I go on the outside and then go inside like so, kind of like that. Even though it shows me going on the outside of the track, this was because like that the maps like these are not as good. So yeah. But you have the advanced layout option on, but you normally have it disabled so that you can in fact see it. And with this one right, you can in fact see yours versus the in fact reference, which is this is in fact my lap, this is the reference, and then pretty much you see right that especially with shifting, you see right that I've, and especially tracks, braking, acceleration, steer, turning, and you see right that accelerate, and then of course throttle like that, brake a little bit, especially around here like so, because you want to make sure right you brake a couple meters before the turn, especially for sharp turns like these, and then you just want to shift out for a second like so, and then put some power into the corner and then put in more, so that by the time you actually exit the corner, you in fact put in a lot more power. So that's if I can in fact mostly in fact tell you. I recommend trying it because you got all your tracks, all your sessions across multiple sim racing games. But also, in fact, it has motorsports news, it has race engineer, which is in fact coming soon, I think, depending on what it is. But in motorsports news, you can customize it. So if I want to check out anything to do with news in the motorsports world, I could just scroll through here and just see what's up. And then of course there's live coaching, which in fact might help you throughout the actual race itself. I think this is for race, but yeah, it should in fact help you for the most part. Like it's kind of like that. So like yeah, it's kind of like what you have on right now. So yeah, with of course recommended hardware, recommend you hardware. So basically, this is the overall best app just in fact use if you want to practice, if you want to race, and yeah, that's in fact if you just want to say, yeah, take all this into consideration when you go for your first race.